I don't think I've ever been bombarded with anything more 90s in my life. Welcome to TV Trash. This is a tale of ridiculous hair, even more ridiculous costumes, laser beams shot out of fists, and body proportions that would make a 1980s wrestler aghast. Welcome to Superheroes in the 90s. This one definitely requires a history lesson. WildCATS originated in 1992 as the first comic book series created by Jim Lee after he helped found the legend known as Image Comics. Likely due to Image's supposed mission of giving creators more freedom, the series was fully owned by Lee under his own company Wildstorm while being published by Image. The series did almost immediately see a huge spike in popularity at the height of the speculator boom, selling as many as 1 million copies to comic shops, and the characters became an integral part of the infamous Image Valiant crossover Deathmate, which I'm still really surprised Linkara has yet to make a review of. At any rate, it apparently sparked enough interest with our old friends north of the border at Nelvana to help them make an animated series of the characters. The series premiered in the fall of 1994 as part of CBS's Saturday morning Action Zone, which also included, oh joy, the first of the Ninja Turtles Red Sky years. Believe me, there's more of a connection there than you may know. For now, let's just see what WildCATS Covert Action Teams was really all about.
WildCATS Mission Log. Entry 1. Jacob Marlowe speaking. We are in the middle of a war. A war mankind is not even aware of.
It involved eugenics and this guy named Khan. Maybe future generations will view it as much more significant. So as we open in generic big city number 778, this guy exposits on his looking to complete a strike team against some threat called the Daemonites. And then we cut to this guy looking to build his own computer or something before his apartment is invaded by Mr. Freeze clone robots.
Mr. Bryce, you're an artist with a blade.
Not only that, ha! I also happen to be a black belt. Who are those guys? What do they want? And do I really want to stick around and find out?
You know what? I give this show props for showing restraint and not making that a woman. It turns out Reno Bryce is also being pursued by these clowns, who Bryce also runs away from. It's actually one of the more sensible things you'll see in this show.
Maul, they're Daemonites.
No kidding.
They're Daemonites.
If Roddy Piper doesn't show up saying he's about to kick ass and chew bubblegum, I'm going to be severely disappointed.
I'll take them.
Get real, Zealot. You don't stand a chance without me.
Just don't get in my way, Grifter.
And the team is infighting during a battle. Why is my faith in them saving the world not being assured? Basically, the freak show saves Bryce from the Daemonites and takes him to the headquarters of David Xanatos if his father was Danny DeVito, where his human computer Void reveals that Bryce is indeed someone who, like the rest of this team, descended from an extraterrestrial race called the Carabim, who fought the Daemonites thousands of years ago and defeated them, except for one spaceship full that crash landed on Earth and have since since been living in secret, trying to conquer Earth by taking over human bodies. X-Men, They Live, Transformers, the Tomorrow People. Ooh, if I can only land Batman, I'll get cheap knockoff bingo! So anyway, Jacob Marlowe here is the head of Halo Enterprises and is basically the one assembling all these descendants of the Cherubim to be his superhero team against the Daemonites. A corporate-backed strike force team trying to save the world. Man, how naive we were in the 90s. They bombard Bryce with intergalactic X-rays, which turn him into this.
What have you done to me?
Hey, at least you didn't turn king-size like I did.
This is why if you're a comic creator, you don't watch 80s anime on acid! Long story short, the rest of the pilot is about Bryce struggling to adapt to his new abilities as Warblade before the Daemonites finally catch him and try to make him one of them, but the WildCATS arrive and Purple Woman here is able to purge the Daemonite spirit from him or something, and Warblade is finally accepted into the team known as the WildCATS, who consist of the leader Spartan, who is a cyborg with the brain of a dead human downloaded into it, Grifter, who is basically Deadpool if he carried guns and had no charm whatsoever, Maul, the Hulk if he had size-changing powers, some type of white lady ninja named Zealot, and Voodoo, who is pretty much the Mati of the group. So did all of that get you interested into this team of heroes? Well, tough noogies, because we still have 12 episodes to go. So, where do I even begin? Let's start with me not even knowing what to accuse this show of stealing from. Obviously, the first knee-jerk response is to say this is an X-Men ripoff, because hey, everything was an X-Men ripoff back in those days. But for what it's worth, this looks like it might even be a ripoff of another action team made by Jim Lee's co-founder at Image. Yeah, this may as well be a Youngblood copycat. Now, fair warning, I am not some great expert on early 90s independent comics, so it's not like I know a ton about Youngblood. But just from the start of what research I could do, the similarities to the Youngblood and WildCATS characters are downright ridiculous. Spartan is Shaft, Maul is Badrock, Zealot or Voodoo may as well be Vogue, and Grifter is flat out Chapel. It's so not even trying to be subtle that I'm surprised Rob Liefeld didn't challenge Jim Lee to a duel over the honor of his creations. Comparing WildCATS to Youngblood any further would be a fruitless endeavor, but I can compare it to a much more successful show, the first Ninja Turtle series. This does fit because not only did these two shows share a time block, but the head writer for the show was Ninja Turtle alum Bob Forward, with assistance from David Wise. I was going to go into this big rant about how drab and boring the music for WildCATS is, especially compared to that awesome Ninja Turtle soundtrack from Dennis C. Brown and Chuck Lorre, but for what it's worth, I keep thinking there were some other cartoons of this time period which also had music just as morose, so maybe it's not worth getting into. What I can talk about with WildCATS is how bland the characters are and how too similar they can be from one another. Watching the first episode for the first time, it was very difficult to tell one member of the WildCATS apart from one another other than appearance. Just a bunch of generic super soldiers given different costumes and abilities, but no real outstanding personalities for any of them. They do start expanding on the individual personalities eventually, but it's not until episode 4 that they primarily focus on a character other than Warblade or Spartan. And even then, they still blend and bleed into one another just too much. The main characters' personalities for the most part fall into one of two categories. Either the tough, battle-hardened warrior who's always grumbling about the rest of the team's shortcomings, or the insecure, moody type constantly questioning their own abilities and or not really wanting to be here. Compare that to the Ninja Turtles, where one of the biggest things that made the show engaging was how each of the turtles had very distinct personalities that each made them unique and allowed them to play off of each other. It actually wasn't until the third season that the show started making episodes focused solely on the trials of one individual turtle, and even then it didn't become a regular occurrence until the move to CBS for the fourth season. But each episode still provided just enough on each turtle's character traits that we got a good feeling on who each one was at heart. Though for what it's worth, the more I look back on it, even that practice was cut out by the Red Sky years, which meant that if anyone first tuned in during those seasons, they themselves may have had difficulty figuring out what made the Turtles endearing. So yeah, as I alluded to in the Ninja Turtles retrospective, this may have been a whole network meddling thing. For what it's worth, WildCATS does seem to have this ongoing storyline where the leader of the Damonites, Hellspawn, is searching for the MacGuffin of the show known as the Orb. Though it isn't until about episode 5 where we finally get some major clues to the Orb's location.
It says that something called the Orb is hidden in the Temple of Themyscira, and that the Orb can only be controlled by she who can see evil within.
Gee, and the WildCATS have someone who can see when people are possessed by Damonites. I wonder if there could be a connection. By the 10th episode, both the WildCATS and Hellspawn find the Orb's location, but none of them can get it without solving the riddle of the tablet. All of this comes to a head in the season finale Endgame.
What kind of stupid name is that?
A two-parter that had so much 90s trope insanity that it probably needs a separate review all its own. Suffice it to say, Hellspawn appears to get the power of the Orb, but the WildCATS stop him by blowing up his ship because that somehow works.
Think we'll hear from those creeps again?
That depends. Have we been renewed for another season?
Nope, they were not. To be fair, that may have been for the best anyway, since, as I've mentioned before, CBS's Saturday morning lineup didn't last much longer itself. Not helped by the lineup getting buried in the wake of several CBS affiliate stations switching to Fox in the mid-90s following that network's landmark acquisition of NFL broadcasts. As for Jim Lee, he eventually defected from Image Comics and sold the whole Wildstorm company, WildCATS included, to DC. Though this was supposedly because he wanted to go back to being an artist full-time, since the whole publishing gig meant little time for family, so I'll give him that. As far as what I have to say about WildCATS, my final grade is... I give the show credit for being one of the first Saturday morning animated series to incorporate an ongoing storyline, but it gets hurt by not spending enough time in the early episodes to give us enough reason to get vested into it. It's pretty much what you would expect from an early Image Comics adaptation. A generic retread of so many ideas and settings we've seen before, but with none of the charm, substance, and heart that made any of those previous works succeed. I get that everything is a copy of something else when it comes to creativity, but you still gotta put out some type of effort in making yourself look different, otherwise you just come off as a cheap knockoff of some other guy's more successful work. See you next time on TV Trash.